Did that new Pro Bowl format work for y'all? I'm genuinely asking the question because I don't know what the NFL can really do with the Pro Bowl. Like, there's only so much you can do because one, the Pro Bowl, for obvious reasons, cannot take place in the middle of the year. If it took place in the middle of the year, if you think participation is low now, it would be much lower in the middle of the year because everybody's going to opt to take the bye week in football. It's a very physical sport. So moving it wouldn't help. It's in the only spot it really can exist, and honestly, it's not even a bad spot because it's in between the championship game and the Super Bowl where you have a natural gap. Anyways, it makes sense to put it there, right? Guys are out of the season, but not so far out the season to where they can't do any kind of strenuous activity. And it's usually before a lot of guys choose to get surgery on off-season parts, right? So the placement of it isn't wrong. There's a lot of reasons why that's the only place the Pro Bowl can be. The problem with the Pro Bowl isn't the placement. It isn't anything other than the fact that it is a all-star game for football. And football is not the type of sport, especially at the professional level, where you can just have an all-star game, right? Like the Senior Bowl can exist, but those guys are very heavily incentivized to play a physical game of football in the Senior Bowl. In the Senior Bowl game, the effort's here and there, but it's decent enough to where it resembles football, and that's not normally a problem. We don't really talk about Senior Bowl effort, partly because nobody really watches it. But that's because guys are trying to get drafted. You know, same thing with high school recruiting bowls and all of that. And these guys are also young enough to be able to risk their body for an extra game. Now, I don't even think we should really be doing these high school all-star games. I don't know who these guys, what the purpose of these all-star games are really serving, outside of giving hardcore fans an early look at top recruits. Other than that, like all of the scouting stuff that they do there, they could do in a camp. You know what I mean? They don't have to actually play the game. But the Pro Bowl serves no such purpose. It's not a recruiting event. It's not, to get scouts to get a good look at you. It is just a reward. And there are multiple camps of people who don't like the Pro Bowl and why the Pro Bowl's been in such a tough spot. Because there are some people who think they should play a real game of football. Now, I don't even think the people who are saying this are insane enough to think that they should play like a real game of football, like really be trying to win, because that's insane. It's an insane injury risk to put the best players in the NFL at. It would just be insane. Also, the issue that football has with it being an all-star game is, you know how long it takes to get like 11 guys on each side of the ball to learn an offense? You only have a week in the Pro Bowl. There's only so much real football you can do if you're trying to play football, which brings us to this year, where they switch from regular football to flag football. The reason they did this is for a couple of reasons. One, the actual Pro Bowl was resembling more of flag football, honestly, as the days went forward. So that was something to consider. Two, you don't have to. The big issue with the Pro Bowl, and the thing I see get pointed out a lot, is the line of scrimmage play. It's basically non-existent for a good reason. Nobody's trying to sack these Pro Bowl quarterbacks, and nobody's trying to get hurt in the trenches. So it just ends up looking pretty bad because they just kind of snap the ball and stand up. And we're not going to be installing protections in the Pro Bowl. It's just ridiculous. So they get rid of that whole element, right? No, you're not going to see offensive line play. All you're going to see is skill receivers, skill players. It's kind of awkward to fit running backs into flag football. If you haven't played flag football before, just know it's not a universalized sport. And what I mean by that is if you play baseball, the rules might be tinkered a little bit between how you play, but in general, the rules are the rules, right? Like it's maybe less innings, maybe different bats are allowed. Same thing with football. the field is the same no matter where you play it. The rules might tinker a little bit, but the rules are the rules. Same thing with basketball, hockey, football, de internación, and everything else, right? But flag football is not at that point yet to where it's matured into its sports state. I think it eventually will be with 5-on-5. I think that's a very entertaining version of it. But the rules for flag football are wildly different depending on who's playing the flag football, right? Like some unlimited backwards passes, some you can block, some you can't, right? If you've ever played some flag football, you would know some of these rules, they change, right? Some of these leagues you have set blockers, some of them don't. And I think the issue with this year's Pro Bowl was it just didn't feel organized, right? I think you could live with playing flag football and people will still watch. You could live with the competitions and people will still watch. But it felt so disorganized, and I felt like some of it was misadvertised. So there was the best catch thing that they did on Friday, and I watched the video, and it was all pre-recorded. If I want to see somebody do a great catch, I don't want to see it be pre-recorded. I can watch a Dude Perfect video, and I stopped watching those when I was like 13. If I wanted to see pre-recorded trick shots, it's not that impressive. I want to see it done live in front of a crowd, right? So all of the stuff that you're going to do, you got to figure out a way to have it done live and in front of a crowd. That's what sports is about. We don't want pre-recorded in live sports. We really don't. We want live in front of a crowd. If you do anything that resembles a sport, even pro wrestling, you want it done live in front of a crowd. That's the rule of thumb when it comes to any of these things. It has to be done live in front of a crowd. I'm not watching a 3-point contest that was pre-recorded. That's stupid. In front of nobody. I want it live in front of a crowd. If it's not live, literally, I want it in front of a crowd. But it has to be in front of a crowd. That's one. That's one thing they could do to fix this. Two, they got to come up with better competitions. I felt like they had some very basic, stripped down competitions to be able to get them in front of a crowd. I would say this, just commit to the Pro Bowl being about games. And I think the issue that they had was they still wanted to use a 50-yard wide field for a 50-yard game of football. Look at the 5-on-5 field, and I hope I remember to put up a picture of it, but if I don't, Google it. The 5-on-5 field is meant to fit in a basketball arena for flag football. And I think that would be much better because it's going to make the athletes seem more dynamic. You get to have more people have a shine, and you get to have more games so you can see more athletes do it. And I think it ends up being more competitive the less people you have on the field. So that's the first change I would do is flag football is fine. Make it 5-on-5 flag football. If you want to do it, you could have it be a tournament of 5-on-5 flag football games. Have these guys pick teams, right? They represent the AFC and the NFC. Maybe there's an AFC bracket and an NFC bracket to see who determines this, right? But you could do 5-on-5 quick flag football games with maybe 3 scores. Okay, so that way nobody's getting exhausted in this tournament. And then maybe even if you want to, you could throw in a wild card. Like, let's throw in an actual 5-on-5 flag football team in there, the U.S. team, to see if these guys are going to compete against lesser athletes, but athletes who are more comfortable in this game. So I think that would be interesting. So instead of it being 7-on-7, make it 5-on-5. I think you'll get more out of that. And then you'll have more room for the stuff that I ultimately think is more entertaining, which is the game. Right, you'll have more room to have interesting obstacle courses. You'll have more room to actually do best catch in front of a crowd. You know, if you're going to make it the Pro Bowl games, make it the Pro Bowl games, not make it the Pro Bowl kind of trying to fit a football game in here. Let's make it the Pro Bowl games. Let's have a 5-on-5 football tournament, a flag football tournament. Let's enhance some of the obstacle courses by giving them more space to operate in, and let's go all out with this ideal of it being the Pro Bowl games and do everything in front of a crowd. I think they are on the right track. I think they're taking baby steps. I don't see the reason for the baby steps. I get that you cannot play a real game of football at this point for the Pro Bowl. It's just ridiculous to ask players to do. But if you do want to have a fun, rewarding kind of kick back, relax, turn on the Pro Bowl games for the week that in between the Super Bowl and the AFC Conference Championship game, I think this would be a good way to do it. You know, if you put it in the tournament format, that flag football, everybody's going to be playing hard because nobody likes to lose a tournament. Like, it's just a human thing. You put somebody in a tournament, now you want to win, especially athletes. So I think that would be better. And like, just like legitimately, I think it's been one of my missions. Go watch a 5-on-5 flag football game and tell me that's not an entertaining way to do flag football. It is the most entertaining way to watch flag football. It's very entertaining. So that's what I would recommend that they do, is switch from 7-on-7 to 5-on-5 so you can have a more condensed field, have more space for the activities like Set Brothers, and have more interesting obstacle courses, relay races, tests of strengths, feats of strengths, you know, and things like that. I thought the kick-tack-toe was pretty cool. I thought there were some really cool things. The passing challenge, that's always fun to watch. Maybe we can make it even more interesting. The obstacle courses, the relay races. I like all of those ideas. They just need to be seasoned a little bit better. You know what I mean? Enhanced. And I think that's the path. And that's how we can have a Pro Bowl games that people don't complain about all weekend after it. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. You have a great day. Have a good night.